Well, hello and welcome to the Market Dominators Real Estate Podcast here. I am John Spaschak, Associate Real Estate Broker with WNY Metro Roberts Realty, and I'm here with my partner, the #1 buyer's agent in Western New York, award-winning agent, Mr. Scott Catillus.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Whether you're driving in your car, listening in your office, maybe you're working out at the gym, giving us a listen in your headphones. We appreciate you being here with us today. We hope that you love this as much as we do.
Yes. And as I said, you are listening to the Market Dominators Real Estate Podcast, where we seek to, what do we do here?
We educate, we advocate, we negotiate, and then we dominate.
Yes, we do. And folks, we've been going through a 6-week series. We are now on week 4 on the 6 majors of a house. Now, here's the thing. We like to compare houses to the human body. People can understand that kind of language, right?
It's easy. Yeah.
And actually, houses, if you think about it, according to these 6 majors, are very similar. So the way that we like to do that is establish 6 majors. 3 happen to be structural and 3 are mechanical. So when we talk about the 3 structural majors of a house, they're very similar to the 3 structural majors of a human. We have our head, and if we compare our head to a house, that would be the roof of the house, the top of the house.
Right.
And then we have our torso, and that's the center of the house where all of the organs live, right? Where all of the living space happens, okay? And then you have the basement, or maybe the legs or foundation of the house, the legs or feet of the house. And so those are your 3 structural majors. And then we have 3 mechanicals, right?
Right. So the mechanicals, if you think about it, your house has electric, right? Lights, make sure you power all your appliances. Electric is huge. House has electric. We have a nervous system. Our brain sends these electrical impulses out and tells our body what to do, right? And then a house has a plumbing system that sends your water and your wastewater and your dirty water all throughout the home. We have a digestive system, right? We take in food, liquid, process it, send it out, right? And then lastly, house has heating and cooling, HVAC. We have our own internal breathing, inhale, exhale, that regulates the temperature of our body, just like it does for a house.
Yeah, HVAC. Heating and cooling, regulates the temperature, right?
Yep.
So that's there you have it, folks.
Critically important structures that
yes,
we want to make sure when we're looking at a house, we break them down so our clients know what they're getting into.
That's right. That's a big part of the education side of when we deal with a client, whether it be a buyer or a seller. And a lot of times it's a little heavier on the selling side. I mean, the buyer side when we're going over the 6 majors, because we really want to pick that house apart for the buyer to make sure we're advocating for them, right? But we have to teach them. It's their decisions, right? So we want to give them the education, and we're big on that, right? Our logo, as you can see here with this new signs, it's got the graduation cap on it. Everything we do is from that educational platform.
Yeah.
So helping our clients understand how a house can be broken down will give them the confidence and the knowledge to understand what they're getting into. So, so we broke down the structural over the last 3 weeks. We talked about roofs and roofing systems and shingles and how a roof needs to breathe underneath. And we've talked about, the center of the house, right? The walls, windows, doors, and floors, right? Of the house, and how to look at them and make sure that they're in good condition, and how are they operating properly, and what kind of what's on the walls on the outside is particularly important, because it could be brick, could be wood, could be siding, could be aluminum, vinyl, whatever. Or a combination. A lot of houses are a combination. So we really wanted to talk about that, and we did that. And then last week we talked about one of the biggest majors for structure, which is the basement or the foundation.
Yeah, the basement's huge. Everything that the house is built on the basement.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that that's an important one. Okay.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of money if it's not in good shape.
And we even talked about, we really probably should have started with that one, because everything builds on top of the foundation.
Right.
So
Right.
that was critical. If you didn't get to see any of these episodes, please visit our YouTube channel, Market Dominators Team, like and subscribe. But you could also go back and check at any time you want for free at your leisure, whenever you want, and go back and look at those podcasts, and you can gain that knowledge. Okay.
Yep.
And so, and by the way, these podcasts are out there. Other realtors, our competitors, anywhere really in the country or world, can pick these podcasts up and learn from them, and steal our ideas and the way that we approach the business and help our clients.
Yeah.
We're
free for everyone.
It's free for everybody. It's all out there. It's we've nothing to hide, right?
Yep.
So getting into the mechanicals this week, the first one that we're going to attack is the nervous system of the house. Now, the nervous system of the house is important. If we look at it, the nervous system of the human, the real center of that nervous system is controlled by our brain. And the nervous system on a house is controlled by the panel. We call it the electrical panel.
Yep.
And what comes into that panel, what's feeding that panel with the electricity is amperage, right? So why don't you talk about a little bit for us the service line, which is exposed to the outside, the exterior, and how important that is, the condition of it, and then how we learn maybe how much amperage comes through it and why.
So whenever I'm looking at a house, typically we're always starting outside. I always try to check the service line. So if your house, obviously, no matter where you are on your lot, you've got a line coming in from your telephone pole, or maybe it's underground, but either way, you've got a line coming in that's going to come from the pole. It's going to connect to the house. And then from the house coming down, typically, because normally this is in the basement, your service line is going to run down the side of the home. And it's going to be a thicker wire, normally braided in like a heavy duty plastic to protect it from the elements.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rubber.
Yeah, like a rubber sheathing. Yeah. And
it's usually gray.
Right. Normally gray, unless people have painted the house, and sometimes they paint the wire.
Which is a no-no, by the way. Homeowners, you do not want to paint that, because the paint will not allow that rubber that is specially made to coat that to expand and contract.
Yeah.
And it suffocates it, and it causes that rubber to dry out and crack. And when it does, that compromises your service line.
Yeah. Well, then you've got cracked sheathing. What gets in there? Water, moisture. Where does that go? Goes down the line. If you keep following that line down, you're probably going to hit your electric meter. And then from your electric meter, it's going to go into the basement. Again, if your electric panel is in the basement. And then it's going to go into the panel. And then from there, it's going to go out throughout the entire house. So we always look at that service line, because that's the first point where you're getting power to your home. Okay. And so from a variety of standpoints, one being safety, but also another one being for a bank mortgage. If you're getting a certain type of loan, that service line, if it's in bad shape, if it's frayed and all the internals are exposed, that wire is normally a very thick aluminum wire. If that's exposed, it can be a safety problem just personally, but the bank won't give you a mortgage until it's rectified. So we always want to pay attention to that. Make sure we're not getting our clients into something that's going to cause a holdup 30 days down the road once we have the bank appraisal. And then from there, you want to also make sure that what's actually holding it to the wall, the normally metal brackets, you want to make sure those are in good shape too, because if they're older and they're rusting, well, then that's going to compromise that wire as well. It's going to cause it to then rust and again deteriorate. So we always want to be checking out that main line. That's huge.
As well as the straps.
Yes, right. As well as the straps. And then it comes into the house at some point, whether it goes through wood or whether it goes through brick, your siding. There's then going to be a hole in your house, right? That wire goes through the hole. So you want to make sure that it's puttied up really nicely, because you can get moisture. You can get critters, right? Bugs, insects, things like that.
Sure.
So you just want to make sure that in general, where that line comes into the house is in really good shape.
Sealed up real well.
Right? And then it's going to actually come down into the panel. And now there are really, you're going to see in general two types of panels. One is really old and really not super safe, but you'll still see it. And it's actually old school fuses. And then the other one, which is now what pretty much everybody has, unless they haven't updated their service in a super long time. And that's your actual breaker box where you've got your breaker.
Mm-hmm.
You're running the dishwasher, you're cooking, you've got stuff going on because you got people over. There's just a lot of power being run through one circuit. It trips it, right? Suddenly the lights shut off. Oh my gosh, what happened? You go down into the basement, you open up your panel, and you see, oh, there's the one breaker. And you just flip it.
Right.
Power comes back on. Right now, you can't keep just doing the same thing over and over, because what you're doing is you're really overloading that circuit. It's only designed for so much amperage, so much electrical flow, right?
Well, when that flows through the wire, folks, it's really important to understand that what's flowing through there is heat.
Yes.
Okay. And so when the wire gets hot enough, the breaker is designed to shut the power off to that wire.
Yeah.
Because it's telling that wire you're overheating.
Yeah. I mean, if you're running too much heat, there's different size wires. You can have little itty bitty. You can go all the way up to like real thick 0 gauge wire. You're not going to use that in your panel, but there's different size wires depending on whatever your application is.
And we know that the higher the gauge, the thinner the wire.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So you don't want to be running too much power through too small of a line.
Right.
That's how you overload a system, start fires potentially.
That's right.
It can be dangerous. So that's, just a very simple reason why the electric is really important. So when we're then looking at that panel, we want to make sure, okay, number one, how's the condition of the panel, right? I mean, if it's in a basement, is it rusted? We can't really do it as agents, but you get a home inspector who will actually take the panel cover off.
But let's talk about that for a second, because
let's talk about it.
When you're looking at that service line, that's why it's really critically important. I'm so glad you said it. Is that when you are looking at a house, you start on the outside first, and you notice things on the outside that you're going to have to file and think about when you go on the inside, right?
Right.
And one of them, like we talked about at one point when we were talking about structure, you're going to look at the foundation, the lower part of the house as you're walking around, because if you see any cracks, then you want to look at the basement walls when you get into the basement, right?
Yep.
With electrical, you're going to look at that service line and see if it's sealed up well and what kind of integrity that line has, right?
Yep.
Is it in good shape? Is it not? How's it wearing? Is it on the weather side of the house? Because usually when those begin to deteriorate, if your seal isn't really sealed up very well, where the wire's going into the house, you're going to pretty much assume that you are increasing exponentially your chances of water taking the path of least resistance into that panel. And now we as agents cannot take the panel cover off. And sometimes we could ask, like for sellers, I could ask them, can you take your electric panel cover off to get prepared for the listing to be marketed, so that we'll know whether or not there's something in the panel to address.
Right.
Okay. But you either have to have your home inspector with you at a showing or doing a home inspection where you can take that panel off. But we can at least get an indication as to, hey, does this make sense or not? I'm getting a phone call here, so I do apologize. That panel may or may not have a good chance of having water get into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's rusted.
And then it could have rust in there, or water hitting some of the wire.
Right.
So it's one thing for water to get into the panel. It doesn't mean that the water would hit, or moisture would hit the wire, which would corrode and cause an electrical problem. In the house.
Yeah. So, once you look at that panel, right, and we check out, we make sure, hey, in general, it's in good shape. Now, sometimes you can tell right off the bat, oh, this is a new panel. They might even disclose it. It might be in the listing. The seller says, oh, I just put a new electric service in the last year, right? Well, you still want to make sure that whoever put it in did a good job. No electrician's perfect, just like anybody doing a job isn't perfect. So it always helps to double check, just like when somebody says they've got a new roof. Well, sure, it's probably done right, but people can make mistakes. So you always just want to double check, make sure that the box is really wired well. Everything seems good. The wire size correctly matches up with the breaker size, right? You don't want to have one too large.
Or one wire to one breaker, right? Because a lot of times it's called double tapping.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep. You can get double tap breakers.
Put 2 circuits into one breaker.
Yeah.
That's a no-no.
Yeah. But very
people
easily
do it.
fixable.
It's very easily fixed. Yeah.
So, and then from there, then, you're going to want to be looking at the actual wires that are coming out of the box itself. And they're going to all the different parts of your house, your rooms, your bathrooms, your garage, if you've got outside outlets, right? And you want to actually check those wires in specific, because just like anything, right? 50, 60, 70 years ago, they used different wiring than they do now. And if you've got a new, nice updated panel, it's going to have nice new Romex wire that we know is safe. It's good. But there's other wires out there that people have never had a problem, but you can get what's called aluminum wiring, where the wiring actually, instead of copper, was aluminum.
Yeah.
Right?
So there was a period of years, pockets of where we're at in Western New York, where, from maybe 67 to 72, like a 5-year period there in certain pockets, particularly in, one of our local towns here, where all the houses were built with aluminum wiring.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong, but you have to understand that when you connect aluminum to copper, that's where you could have a connection problem, because you're two different types of metal.
Yeah.
And they handle heat differently. You have to have the right connections. So there could be some very significant safety issues with aluminum wiring if you don't know how to do it correctly.
Right.
And so, that's definitely something critical that we have to look out for buyers when we're looking at the electrical major of a house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And then, of course, that electrical can extend itself all the way into, okay, what kind of fixtures do we have? What kind of appliances are we driving? Does the amperage make sense for the right utilities that we're using? If we have a hot tub in the back, on a back patio or something, is that done correctly?
Yep.
Is there a pool? Are there, outside? Is there an outlet on the outside of the house? Then there's issues of, on the end use is we could put further protection. So within 6 feet of water anywhere in the house, or an area where a human can act as a ground, we want to make sure that the end receptacle is GFCI protected.
Yeah.
That's those receptacles that have those little buttons in there where you can reset it.
Yep. You push
Okay.
them. Yep.
So that will help protect you as a user, kind of almost like a fuse, whereas a regular breaker back at the box is protecting the wire, right?
Right.
And a GFCI, will be a further increase, higher level of protection for safety, particularly in those areas, 6 feet of water. So kitchens, bathrooms, basements, garage, a lot of times garage and outside.
Yep.
So those are your areas where you want to look and see that circuit anywhere within those need to be GFCI protected. Now you can GFCI protect it from the panel. So a lot of times you might go into a home and you might see regular outlets in the kitchen and you say, whoa, they're not GFCI protected. Well, you don't know that. You could go back to the panel and open up the panel box and look at the breakers. And if you were to be able to find out what circuit went to that particular kitchen or bath, that you didn't see a GFCI protected outlet there, but all of a sudden you realize that the breaker is a GFCI breaker. It's protecting the entire circuit from the breaker.
Right.
So that's a different type of breaker.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
A lot of fail safes that you can put in.
Yeah.
So, but again, we're always looking at that stuff. We're just making sure, again, this is a major component of a home. We want to make sure that it's done well. We want to make sure that if it's not done well, at least our clients know. Again, right? We don't make decisions for people.
That's right.
I've shown people houses and it has old wiring in it. There's another type of wiring called knob and tube. It's very old. It's got its own problems. Sometimes you can't even get insurance on the house because it's just a safety issue. But I've had people say, I understand and I'm willing to take that on. Okay, hey, we educated you versus you had no idea and you bought the house and suddenly you walk in and go, what do you mean I need to rewire the whole house and it's $7,000, right?
Folks,
so we're trying to protect people from that.
We save people money by educating you so you know what you're getting into here.
Yep.
Okay, so this is all part of the education process here that we provide at the Market Dominators team. Again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Market Dominators team on YouTube. You can like and subscribe. Please, please, please.
Please do. We'd appreciate
And
it.
you can even hit that little bell, and it will give you a notification as to every time we bring content to the channel. So we really are grateful for all of our clients out there and for all of you potentially future clients out there. Our main goal is to educate, to advocate, to negotiate, and to dominate. So we thank you for tuning in again. We want to remind you that we had breaking news here a couple weeks ago that we have partnered with the fastest growing real estate firm in Western New York, which is WNY Metro Roberts Realty. The Market Dominators have come to an agreement with them. We're up and running. We're going full tilt, and we're here to help. We're here to help and serve, and we're thankful we get to do this every day, day in and day out. And one of the reasons that we joined Metro Roberts Realty was the opportunity to not only help our clients win more cash, but also because Jim Roberts he's got a heart the size of Texas, and he has the most agent-centric real estate brokerage I believe, in the entire state of New York. And you talk about a windfall. Let's talk about it, folks. Woo! We are in the money. Yes. And we're here to share that money with you. Just join us. Just join us. Reach out to us. Find us online. Find us on YouTube, Market Dominators team. Like and subscribe. And we thank you for joining and listening and tuning in. Woo! Yes.